Hey everybody, this is GGB and co-host Pepper. She's finally making her return for the show after a 2-day absence. And I'd just like to remind everyone that, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've started adding little sections in the video. So if you want to go to a specific part, like you're only interested in Big 10 basketball, Big 12 basketball, ACC basketball, you can just skip to that section. You don't have to watch the whole video. So I thought it would be more helpful for fans of just that one conference that don't really care about college basketball outside of that. And like, if your favorite team's Penn State, for instance, my favorite team's Penn State, you can just skip to the Big 10 part and see what needs to happen for us to rise higher, or what happened yesterday, which is what's going to happen in this video. But hey everybody, let's start the actual introduction. Hey everybody, this is GGB co-host Peppers, and let's get into college basketball episode of the day. So, we had yesterday Big 12 basketball. I was very excited for it, and we actually got a pretty significant flop in what happened. We had many people knew that Baylor Texas played last night. Baylor was able to defeat Texas, although it was a very close game at halftime. Texas falls to 5-3, but West Virginia won last night against Iowa State in what actually turned out to be a pretty close game, which a lot of people didn't see coming, considering Iowa State is arguably the worst team in the Big 12, although Kansas State's trying to give them a run for the money. West Virginia moved to 5-3, so now they are in third place, with the only reason Texas having second place is the tiebreaker with an 11-4 record, with West Virginia having the 12-5 record. So that's unfortunate for a team like Oklahoma, who sits at 6-4. Kansas beat Kansas State last night to move to 6-4 in conference, and then move to 12-6. So unfortunately for them, Oklahoma still has the tiebreaker, but they are in the top half of the Big 12. Texas Tech unfortunately was knocked out of the top half thanks to a Kansas win last night. So let's go in the Big 10. Some stuff happened in the Big 10 last night. If many of you people didn't know, Michigan, Illinois did not change. They were still 1-2, considering Michigan's not playing basketball anymore, and Illinois won in overtime last night against Indiana. Now, the thing that happened last night was I was able to survive a Michigan State game that actually was a lot closer than people thought, which unfortunately knocked Ohio State, if you're an Ohio State fan, down to 4. Wisconsin won last night as well, but that didn't really help them a lot, considering Iowa won as well. So they still sit at 8-4, with Ohio State technically having a better record at 14-4 than Wisconsin does at 14-5. And Purdue sits at that 7-5 record since Maryland won last night. So unfortunately for Penn State fans, I was kind of hoping for a Maryland win and then a Penn State win, right? So that we could knock Purdue down a peg so that we could get a little bit closer. Fortunately for us, Penn State lost last night, which meant Maryland actually passed them. So we're going to get a chance to pass Maryland again. Actually, I don't know if we're going to be able to pass Maryland, but we are going to be able to tie our record with Maryland on Friday, so we'll see how that goes. That's what happened in the Big 10 last night. Now, again, Michigan State lost, so they stay in the 13 slot. SEC basketball. So there's one big game last night. It was a pretty huge upset. Ole Miss was able to upset Tennessee 52-50. Now, again, this only resulted in a Tennessee slide by 1. And to be honest, I honestly do think Missouri is a better basketball team than Tennessee is right now. So I don't know if it's a huge thing. But it was a big slide, considering the fact that there are 5 teams. I am not a huge fan of LSU, but Ole Miss was able to pass teams like Auburn and Mississippi State, but unfortunately for them, Georgia also won last night, moving them to 4-6 as well, and having a better record at 11-6. And honestly, Georgia's getting into a team that I don't know if I would really want to play. They're playing some pretty good basketball. They're a scary team right now, so it's going to be interesting. That's what happened really in the SEC. Ole Miss went up a few spots past Auburn and Mississippi State, and Georgia went up a few spots as well, and Tennessee slid 1. So let's go over what is happening today. So the first game of the day we have with the ranked teams at 5 o'clock. We have number 5 Houston in the American traveling to Eastern Carolina. Now, Houston's favored by 16 points in this game on ESPN+. Now, if you actually look at the American Conference, Houston is not going to be knocked out of first place with a loss, and I don't even think 2 or 3 losses could knock them out of first place, considering they have such a huge lead on everyone with a 10-1 in-conference record, a 15-1 overall record, and honestly, is looking like one of the best teams in the entire country right now. Now, Eastern Carolina, on the other hand, sits at 1-6 in conference and is the worst conference team. Now, if Eastern Carolina was to pull off the huge upset, they would rise past Cincinnati and UCF and get into third to last place in the American, which is ninth in the American. So, interesting thing can happen there if Eastern Carolina was to pull off the huge major upset. But the likely thing is Eastern Carolina loses, still stays in last place with a 1-7 in conference record, and Houston wins, and they stay in first place with an 11-1 in conference record. So then we are going to go into SEC basketball. We have two pretty big games. Actually, three pretty big games with ranked teams. We have at 5:30 South Carolina traveling to number 22 Florida, with Florida being favored by 8 points on the SEC network. At 6 o'clock, we have LSU traveling to number 10 Alabama, which is favored by 8.5 points on ESPNU. And at 6 o'clock, we also have Kentucky traveling to number 18 Missouri, which is favored by 5 points on ESPN2. So let's go over what would happen with a win and loss for each team. So Florida can rise to 7-3 with a win and really stay in that 2 spot, which would be nice for a team like Florida, who just wasn't in the top 25 to start the year. It lost one of their better players to start the year, and it's really interesting to see how that goes. But now, for that, if South Carolina loses, again, stays in the same place, third to last place, they would fall to 2-5 in conference, which is better than Texas A&M's 2-6 in conference. So with a huge upset by South Carolina, they would move to 3-4. Again, would not be able to move, but would only be about 3-4 might be a better record than 4-6. I think it would be. That means if with a win, South Carolina could possibly pass Mississippi State, Auburn, Ole Miss, Georgia, and get into 8th place. Oh, actually, 7th place, right? 8th place. No, I'm right. 8th place. With a win, South Carolina can possibly rise to 8th place, and that'd be very interesting to look at. I think it's going to be interesting. I think South Carolina, since they haven't played that many games, they haven't gotten to show off how good or bad they are, so it's going to be interesting. So what would happen with a Florida loss? They'd fall to 6-4, which would drop them below a team like Arkansas, who then Florida would have a 10-5 overall record. Arkansas would have a 14-5 overall record, so of course they pass them. Now I don't know. I'm not positive about this, but if LSU was also to lose, they'd also fall to 6-4. And I don't know if a 10-5 record's better than an 11-6 record. I don't know. It might be. It might be because they played less games. Better win percentage. So I think probably if things shake out like the way I expect them to, it'd be Alabama, Arkansas. Alabama, Florida, Arkansas, LSU. That's the way I expect things to play out tonight in the top 4. But if LSU is able to upset Alabama, they fall to 9-1, and then LSU could rise to 7-3, which again, if Florida wins, would not mean they could pass them. So that's all that can really happen. Again, if Alabama wins, they move to 10-0 in conference, and they stay in first place. And if LSU loses, they fall to 4th place. So not a huge things that are going to happen there. Now, Kentucky plays Missouri tonight. Kentucky, with a win, would rise to 5-4, and would be able to move up a spot, because that would knock Missouri down to 4-4 in conference, and that would mean Missouri would fall from right now. They're sitting in 5th place in the SEC. With a loss, they would fall all the way down to 7th, and then Tennessee would actually Tennessee's kind of rooting for a Kentucky upset here. If Tennessee with a Missouri loss, Tennessee would move up to 5th place in the SEC. Kentucky would move up to 6th place. So it's actually helpful for both teams to win here, for Kentucky and Tennessee, if Kentucky is able to upset Missouri. So if you're a Tennessee fan, I'd be rooting for Kentucky against Missouri tonight. None of the other games really affect you that much. What are the other games we have in conference? We have two important ACC matchup with at 6 o'clock. We have number 16 Virginia Tech traveling to Pitt, which Virginia Tech's favored by 3.5 points in. And at 8 o'clock we have number 14 Virginia traveling to NC State, with Virginia being favored by 7 points on the ACC network. Now, ACC basketball standings. If you're a Virginia Tech fan, obviously you're praying for a win and a Virginia loss, because with a Virginia Tech win and a Virginia loss, you can move up to first place in the ACC, which I don't think anyone picked Virginia Tech to be at this spot in the year, and especially considering that last year they didn't have a great year. This is only second-year head coach, so it's pretty amazing the turnaround that Virginia Tech has gone through. very quickly they've turned into yet another ACC contender. So it's going to be interesting. So what happens if Virginia Tech is upset? They move to 7-3 in conference, which I believe a 6-2 in conference record, thanks to Florida State not playing, would move Florida State into second place. Now Louisville again sits at 6-3, so Virginia Tech could only fall to third place with a loss. They'd move to 13-4 overall. But Virginia Tech is pretty much locked to make the tournament at this point, as long as they don't absolutely crumble. Now Virginia with a loss. Now I've said again, with Virginia with a loss and Virginia Tech with a win would move Virginia Tech into first place, Virginia into second. Now, Virginia can still stay in first place with a loss if Virginia Tech loses today to Pitt. Now, if Pitt was to win this game, they move to 5-4 overall in conference, and they can move from where they sit now, which is 9th place. They can move up 7th, 6th. They can move all the way up to 6th place with a win, can pass Syracuse, Clemson, and Duke. So, very interesting, very huge game for Pitt, and you can get back into the very top tier of the conference, be right behind a team like UNC, Louisville, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Virginia. So, that is what would happen with a Pitt win over Virginia Tech today. Now, what would happen if Virginia is upset by NC State? Now, NC State would move to 4-5, would only be able to move up one spot, but would be able to hop Notre Dame and would be about a game behind teams like Georgia Tech and, well, actually, so if Pitt loses, they move to 8-6. No, actually, NC State would be able to hop Notre Dame, but with a Virginia Tech win over Pitt today, they would be able to be just tied with Pitt as well. So again, with a Pitt loss, Pitt would fall down one spot behind Georgia Tech, so it would fall from 9th to 10th place. Now with an NC State upset over Virginia, they would be able to hop Notre Dame and would only be, they'd have the same record as Pitt, with Pitt only having the tiebreaker because of the better overall record. So, actually, wait, let me do the math here. They have an 8-6 record. NC State would have an 8-6 record. I honestly don't know where the tiebreaker would come from because I don't believe they've played so far this year. So no, I don't think they've played so far this year. They will play on February 17th, which could result in a tiebreaker, but it'd be very interesting to see how the tiebreaker goes, considering they haven't played, and NC State and Pitt would have the same overall record. So it's interesting. If you're an NC State fan, obviously you're hoping for us to beat Virginia tonight, and then you're hoping for a Virginia Tech win, so with a win, you definitely hop Notre Dame. No need to worry about that. But you can also have the same record as Pitt, which means I don't know how the tiebreakers would work in that instance, but they could hop possibly 2 spots with a win. So let's go to some Big East basketball. We have 2 pretty big games tonight. We have Georgetown traveling to number 15 Creighton and number 3 Villanova traveling to St. John's. The fact is, I don't know why people aren't talking about St. John's a little bit more, considering they're probably the 5th best team in the Big East, which is very impressive considering the Big East has teams like Villanova, Creighton, Xavier, and UConn, all teams that are probably NCAA tournament caliber, teams that could probably go on a run like Villanova and Creighton. So St. John's is not a great draw here if you're Villanova, considering that St. John's is on a 4-game winning streak and is looking like a very tough basketball team to beat right now. And if they win tonight, they go to 6-6 in conference, 500, would have a win over Villanova, 12-7 overall record, which in my opinion is a very impressive record to have this late in the year, especially in the Big 12, right? So if St. John's is able to upset Villanova and Creighton is able to, how do I say this? If Creighton's able to stay alive or not avoid the upset against Georgetown, they should move into first place. So that's why it would really affect Villanova. Now, I don't believe they would fall to 3rd, but they would fall to 2nd, which is why that would really suck for Villanova. Now, with the St. John's upset, they would move to 6-6, which unfortunately for them, they won't move anywhere. But with a loss against Villanova tonight, St. John's would fall to 5-7, 11-8 overall, and would fall 1 spot behind Providence. Now, if Creighton is upset by Georgetown, again, Georgetown cannot move regardless if they win or lose. They're sitting at 2-5 record, with DePaul at 1-7 and Butler at 4-8. So if they win, they have a 3-5 record, still not better than Butler's 4. Wait, it might be. They might be able to pass Butler tonight with a win. So Georgetown might have a little bit to play for. Again, Creighton has a lot more to play for if you're watching the Villanova game, especially if you want to stay right behind Villanova, and if Villanova's upset by St. John's tonight. So, with a loss, Creighton will fall to 9-4. Again, that's not a huge shift. I don't believe Xavier would pass them with a win. So, with a loss, I mean. So, the only team that I believe can really move that substantially would be with a Villanova beating St. John's. St. John's would fall a spot. So not a lot is going to happen in the Big East regardless tonight, other than if St. John's is able to upset Villanova. I believe Creighton takes over #1 spot, which would be pretty crazy. But which team does GGB think is going to be upset today? I'm going to go with Virginia. I think NC State is it's a decent basketball team right now. Virginia's the Virginia Tech game, I thought Virginia might have been good because they had beaten some good teams that I thought were pretty good, and then that happens. I don't know. I think NC State's been playing pretty good basketball recently. I think they kind of desperately need this win, and I think it's one of the lower spreads, and I'm not going to bet on Kentucky to beat Missouri or Pitt to beat Virginia Tech. So, everybody, this is GGB co-host Puppers saying adios amigos, and go Wolfpack.